I think even many skeptical people would feel like if they really begin to open themselves to a certain sensitivity, that they feel they begin to receive information, whether that's their own consciousness or their higher self, or it's coming from the spirit of the mountain or from God or from, again, whatever our worldview is. I think it's something a lot of people have experienced. And certainly if one does work with a lot of these sacred plants like ayahuasca or tobacco or wachuma, San Pedro, peyote, iboga, I think one would be hard pressed to not have that worldview that these plants communicate with us. And again, depending on how we want to look at that, but something is being communicated, and something is being communicated to us by someone, something. So when I say the plants were calling to me, there's also a difference in worldview in that often in very traditional worldviews, it was seen that not only was everything conscious, but everything was connected, that nothing was separate. Uh, and so events that happen, things that happen, messages that happen are not seen as separate. Everything is seen as connected. And so um, I think what happened to me is that plants specifically began coming up, like literally in my vision. I would someone would talk to me about it, and this wasn't a word that was in the vocabulary at the time, so it was strange that it started to happen. Or I would dream about something that was related to even things that I didn't understand at the time, but I came to know after that were somehow related to ayahuasca. But I had an inkling that somehow that dream was pointing me towards that plant or the jungle. These kind of serendipitous events started happening. But essentially, what I felt was that I couldn't explain all of these things that were happening to me from a rational lens. Um, like the probability or kind of this idea of coincidence being the explanation started to feel much more feeble than this idea that something was calling me to the jungle. Even from a very rational mind, that seemed like a more probable answer that then all of these things were just coincidences that began happening to me. And so um, there's often this idea that when we're ready for something, I mean, you have like these sayings in Zen, for example, like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I think that can be put to anything in life. Like when you're ready for a relationship will appear. When, I don't know, you're an athlete and you're ready for the Olympics, like that opportunity will arise, but it's only going to arise when you're ready for it. Um, and so in retrospect, the plants were calling me. And it was somewhat apparent at the time, and in retrospect it was very apparent from, I think, all of the synchronicities that began happening, and also how it began to shape my worldview and how I began to see things. It's this idea that plants are sentient and they are conscious. um, it's interesting because sometimes, like working, like a couple small examples, like often when we're working, people will purge in their purge bucket and will say, oh, take that out to a tree or to the land and give it as an offering. And people will look, and they'll, especially if they haven't done this before, they'll look at that as if it's somehow like dirty, or it's like soiling the land. Even that word, like to soil, it has a bad connotation, even though to soil something should have a beautiful connotation, that the soil is what nourishes the earth. But it's seen that vomit is like somehow bad or disgusting, but it's nourishment to the land. It's food for the land, because we as humans have a symbiotic relationship to the entire plant kingdom. Um, Plants give us everything that we need, that we vitally need for our existence. They give us air, they give us food, they give us um, um, our medicines. They gave us, even maybe some people may see as like some intangible joy, and certainly from a deeper perspective, this idea of medicine is they're also giving us this deep wisdom. And then everything that we do as humans, we breathe oxygen, we emit carbon dioxide. That's food for the plants. Our literally our poop, our pee, our vomit, all of these things are food for the plants. Our bodies, as we decompose, that becomes an essential part of the cycle of life. So this idea that there's always this symbiotic relationship